And so I do it 1 year back, 1 month back, and I do it 2 years forward. So 2 years starting from 1 month back. So this includes the Mars and Jupiter aspects. And you'll see, right? I don't put everything in here. I'm looking for the bigger things. Sometimes you can put in the Mars opposed to the Moon, Mars. Like they're really just one weekly, 2 or 3 day, 4 or 5 day outbursts. The Jupiter squares the Mercury, but the Saturn squaring the Moon, we saw that. This gives us the exact date, November 11th. This is going on this week at its critical point. So this week and a couple of weeks before, a couple of weeks after, where am I living? What I do? I don't want to stay here. I'm not there. The Saturn's there. Then, but in a couple of weeks, Mars hits midheaven, and she's pumping to go. She wants to do something. She doesn't want to just sit back in the past, in the depressing past. So what happens? By the time we get to December 21st, Jupiter's on her ascendant. What's the odds? She's going to go somewhere and do a job and possibly be traveling and teaching. With Jupiter, the workshop, her 3 years of classes are finished, and she's ready to go. She's got a new perspective on herself and wants to go out and do some things, possibly travel. That Jupiter, for her, third house with the Moon, it's geared to travel. Let me out of here. So when I mark these up, I just try and mark for the big things. If Mars hits the Sun, I put it in. I mark here, January 25th, Mars goes into the 12th house. So her doing things get delayed during the winter till February 22nd, when Mars hits the ascendant and she gets pumped and wants to do something again. That's Mars. But then right then, that's the culmination of Saturn opposition Saturn, which I don't have on the 8-year graph. I just put it to the inner planets because you don't need to you just want the main things there. But here it comes in here, you have the Saturn to the Saturn. I should probably mark that in. Let's do it now. Oh, I can't mark it on this. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I should be able to. 1 second. No, because this is, I'm in the, I'm not sure why, but it's not highlight. It's not working now anyways. Okay, so we're not getting that in. So I would highlight it, and I'd highlight the Saturn opposition, but I highlighted the Pluto-Jupiter. Pluto coming up to square Jupiter. I wouldn't have had that on the 8-year graph either. It would be on the 8-year graph. 23. No, I didn't. I put it to Mars and in usually. This you can put it on the 8-year graph. Let me just go back. Wait. Yeah, no, I didn't have it on the 8-year graph. Okay, sometimes I would put it in, but it's on this. This is in our printout for 2 years of things happening. So the Pluto square to Jupiter is a fight for understanding what's right and what's wrong, what's true, what's not. There's a power struggle going on for what's true, what's not. What am I going to do? What I'm not. Part of her knows she should be the astrologer. Part of her is challenged to do other things. There's a fight. Where am I going to do? So she's fighting between a couple of choices she has. What's right, what's wrong. That's the Pluto to the Jupiter. That's building up in March. So she starts doing things. She sets some things up. She goes somewhere. She starts running into some difficulties by March. Then by the end of March, March 21st, Saturn goes into Aquarius. Okay, so it's still in her first house, but by April, it's squaring her midheaven. That's the square to the midheaven, the Saturn coming down, squaring the midheaven. So what am I doing? This Pluto to Jupiter here is a key thing because there's a fight for Jupiter's your common sense, your understanding of things. She's normally smart, but this is affecting her understanding. And she has Uranus opposing it. And so her changeable understanding, her changing outlooks, there's some confrontation around it. I can't do this, I can't do some power struggle going on, somebody telling her how she should be or whatever. Maybe it's trying to hold into work, but it's a battle. She's figuring out what's true and what's not. Then by April, Saturn will square the Moon, midheaven again. It could be a pressure, someone putting pressure on for work, and she's holding into place and it's want to get out, have to hold a bit longer, and then by May, Mars is opposing her Sun, so her tolerance is at a low point at that point. And so for her chart, anytime Mars is going to be at the beginning of Pisces, beginning of Gemini, beginning of Virgo, beginning of Sag, there's always going to be a big issue with that T-square. Same when the sun hits it, but the Mars will be about every 6 months. There'll be some big issue around it. Do I stay? Do I go? What happens? And then then Saturn backs up and comes. So that's the Mars opposing the sun, with her energy below, and that means the codependencies could be higher. And then it comes up, and Saturn, like, you all know how to work with these because we've been working with it. But talking about it and just running from one to the other and saying, okay, that's there, let it be there. Don't have to measure it you just know it's there and there's presence there. And you go forward, so you're getting aware of the textures of her symphony. And then Saturn goes back into Capricorn and opposes Saturn again in August of 2020. And it comes back and opposes itself in November. So that's the end of the midlife phases. Then Saturn squares the midheaven once more. And then by 2021, January, only a year from now, a year and a bit, 15 months, 15 months from now, Pluto will be squaring. There's still a matter of what do I want, where do I want, can I travel, can I not travel, should I do this, should I do? There's still a confrontation. What will work, what won't work? Pluto, what's right, what's wrong? Which side of the fence am I on? So that's part of the battle going on for her. Now that ties in to a progressed sun moving up into the 9th house and moving through the 9th house, trying to develop her philosophies and her understandings. We'll get to that in a bit. But the Pluto-Jupiter, it's a challenge. It's a battle between the inner spiritual and the outer worldly. She's common sense. She's figured out, she can figure out the outer world and know how to make it work. That's her strong suit, her practical sense. But where does the mystical fit in? How far do you go? That's a puzzle. So she has this battle going on now. Then things are going to happen. So when Neptune, by May of 2021, Neptune starts squaring the Mercury. Really, you'll start feeling it in April. And you know your astrology. You've done all the transits. You know these things work. So you see them going on, and you're weaving them together. You don't know exactly what it is, but you got a sense of the texture. If someone has Neptune to Mercury, if she comes to see me then, she's not thinking right. I'm going to have to be practical and think simple things and how to make things simple. But that could be she gets in a difficult relationship and she's trying to think, who's trying to tell her to think one way and she wants to think another. It could be that way, or it could be she's aloof and wanting one and thinking what should I do. So some of this could be just evasiveness from trying to run away from age and run away from where I am. Then Jupiter opposes. So Neptune hits the Mercury. Jupiter opposes the Sun, and it stays back. Retrogrades, goes back over the Sun. So Jupiter opposes the Sun all of June of 2021. That's a special thing. Jupiter opposing the Sun. Her understanding, her common sense is in Mercury. It's social common sense. She's quick-witted. She sees what's going on, but her understanding is Jupiter. And it's a little more radical. That's the astrologer. But she's looking at the things around. For when Jupiter conjuncts your Sun, you get pumped and you're unlucky. You're seeing what you can do for 6 months, 6 years. You push things out, and then you understand where we got to. I'll take the class. I'll see where it goes. I'll do this. It's going. She's done all that. Now, but the opposition, you have to start understanding what you're getting into before you get into it. You have to understand where it's leading to before, and what the repercussions are before you get into it. And so she's going to have an adjustment of understanding. As soon as she can do that properly and she can see before the implications of something, then it will start working positively. But until then, there's a puzzle going on with the Jupiter opposed to Sun, that challenge of understanding or misunderstanding. And it's happening all the same time, surrounded by the Neptune opposed Mercury. So there's some confusing relationship. Someone's expecting something, she's trying to write something. There's some confusion coming in there. The more honest she is, the more simple she is, the clearer that becomes. And you can get through that simply, like wading through a fog. But the more she's caught up in, like, if she sets up a huge business thing now and it builds up to this, so 2021 it's going big, it's going to go out of control and she'll have trouble keeping up with it. She might take on too much. But if she keeps on track with the Saturn, working on adding some courses, not setting anything up, scrambling with work and juggling around, that she could still keep adding to the Saturn going below the horizon in the first quadrant, and might try a few other courses that she might not even think of doing. something artistic or something physical to bypass maybe learning how to do film on something. That would be good use of Mercury and Neptune, because you're not thinking in the same way, you're perceiving and using vision. You're switching mediums, and she'd be switching to her Venus more than the Mercury in her chart. And that could be a useful tool. Still adding to herself. Saturn's still coming along, going down into Aquarius. It's going to come up to oppose her Sun. So the danger is she can make decisions that get her in a lot of trouble there. And it keeps piling up until Saturn gets back to oppose the Sun. So that's a transit picture. How we do it for time? Okay, good. There shouldn't be any chart you don't look at that you couldn't make interesting. Even the most boring person in the world could be interesting when you start seeing what they're going through with the transits. There's Japanese movie star Uzo, and he did a whole movie of this guy he worked for the government, for the post office or something. He lived a boring, like the same thing every day, all the time. But there's this little corner where there should have been a park, and it was just a dive. And he spent his whole life trying to work papers and get things together. And finally, he got a park made before he died, and that was his life. But it wasn't boring. It was so interesting. But in the middle of Japan and its population, it's just one person's little story. Came out. So the filming of stories, of things, I think it's more the texture than writing going as we're going ahead. So maybe there's a shift of adding skills, Saturn going below the horizon, adding a few things and tools. So she got good at it. She can write. If she can start making videos and doing that side and do that as well, she becomes a formidable force as Saturn starts building up to the midheaven. So whatever she's doing, it's a learning curve. It's not so much an accomplishment. You can work, that's a long time, 9, 10 years, Saturn going through the first quadrant, but it's still, she'll do things and she'll work at things, stuff, but she's really learning through that whole phase. What do I want, what I don't want, what do I put up with, what I want to do, what I want to do when I grow up. Okay, now this is the progress chart. So we got a fairly, I would say, a strong sense, a clear sense of what's coming. We've got a caricature of the person, some ideas of things we think about the person. We've got a sequence of events that are going on, happening to that chart, and we have these put together in somewhat of a personal way. So the minute you start to talk to someone, they start telling you, no, this is this, no, it's that, or it's happening this, then you just adjust it and it fits right in, and then you're on track. Okay, so then you get used to doing this. So when you add the progressions in, this is just the chart. It has the natal chart in the progress side. Unfortunately, the inside, like I said before, puts all the aspects in, transit, outer, progress, and natal. It makes it too confusing. You can follow it if you have to. But when you look at it, we see that her progressed sun, natal sun in Virgo, has on the outside wheel here, is progressed up, it's conjuncting Mercury up in the 9th house. Well, this is the philosophical learning, the teaching. So astrology is a really interesting thing, because you can know a bit of it and make it work really well, and then you can think you know it all, and then suddenly it jumps up and you can jump a whole nother octave, and you keep learning. There's a whole nother level to learn, and a whole nother level to learn. It can keep increasing. So really, with her sun going through the 9th house, she's developing her principles and her philosophies and her morals across lifetime. And in developing that morals and those principles, she has some challenges to live up to, because she has challenges on that issue with her Venus, Mars, Neptune, Sun, T-square.